Glad you like the music. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here and joining me. I started with Justin Bieber. I don't know how many of you are fans, but I have a teenage daughter, so I hear a lot of Justin Bieber at my house. And I think his song, What Do You Mean, is perfect for talking about sustainability, because one of the biggest challenges in getting started and integrating sustainability into an organization is that everybody uses a different definition. So when you talk about sustainability with your boss, your colleagues, your friends, others, everybody's thinking about something different. So what do? It's not true that sustainability only refers to philanthropy or something that applies to waste reduction, water management issues that manufacturers might pay attention to. It's really about responsibility, and it can apply across the board to every organization. The challenge is deciding what does it really mean to your organization. And that's what you need to solve so that people aren't asking you Justin Bieber's question, what do you mean when you're talking about it? So next slide. So I'm here to tell you that getting started is a lot easier than you might think. And I'll show you how you can integrate sustainability into your organization. These are 3 organizations that I'm going to use as my main examples. These are organizations that I work with, and I'm using these specifically because they're all so very different. And it shows that you can really do this work in an organization, regardless of the type of industry you're in, regardless of the size of the industry, of the company or the organization, the budget you have or don't have, and what your leadership is really feeling on the topic. Next slide. So here's the agenda. I'll give you a quick overview on my approach in thinking about how you integrate sustainability into an organization, a roadmap, details that you can take away from tonight and use in your own organization, some examples, and then, of course, conclusion and leave time for questions, anything you want to talk about. Okay, so here's what we do. It's 3 steps. First, you have to really understand what the value of sustainability is to your organization. Everything flows from the clarity of the value, understanding your audiences and your organization, and what this all means. From that initial engagement work and investigation, you develop a clear and engaging viewpoint, a statement that you can use to talk about it and recruit additional champions within your organization and outside your organization that can help you with this work. And then finally, you'll choose some supporting strategies and messages to get started and then to build some successes and some wins moving forward. Next slide. Okay, so this first step is really about investigation. You're starting with engagement. Look at all of the many audiences that are affected by your organization or that care about what you're doing. And you're going to want to talk to them or otherwise investigate what do they really care about. What are their needs and interests? This is how you see what's important for you to be doing. So you're asking questions like, what do you think we should be focusing on as a company or as an organization? What do some of our peers do that you think is really great? Why do you think they do what they're doing is so great? What are we missing? Really asking open-ended questions to understand what their needs and interests are. So you start to see who your champions might be, who might partner with you, where you can get some initial traction and buy-in, and where you're going to want to focus. And then what you do is, in the next slide, with that information, you're going to match those against what you see as really the risks and opportunities of sustainability. What I'm showing is the carrots and the sticks. This is really only a partial list of all of the opportunities and downside risks related to sustainability, and you'll want to match those to what you've heard from your audiences on what they care about and what's most important. Again, so you know where you're going to want to focus and where you're going to get the traction. The next slide, you'll see that with that, you're really going to have to connect the dots for people, right? So there are so many studies out there, and I'm happy to provide you with more details if you're interested. But you're looking at, these are some of the key ones that people talk about. So let's say you hear from people that it's really important that we're doing well financially, and that's their focus. So you're going to want to show them some of this information about the financial upside opportunities, focus on cost savings, and those types of data points that are going to be convincing and compelling to them and get their support. Next slide. And you'll want to really dig deeper down past the initial examples there was sort of the macro trends and you can read about them all the time, but there are also some specifics. So let's say you're working with product development, and you're developing products that are intended to appeal to millennials. So you'll want to put together something like this that shows them how compelling sustainability or corporate responsibility is to millennials and how this could help them in attracting and relating to those audiences. And you'll notice here, who else might care? Well, HR, you see there's some HR benefits here as well. So you can see how there's an interrelationship, and you can see where the benefits of focus on sustainability will apply across the board in other areas of your organization as well, once you do this deep investigation and engagement work. Next slide. Okay, so once you have that initial engagement work done, you've started to identify who your potential partners might be, what their real value is to the organization. You'll need to translate this, the next step in the roadmap is to translate that into a clear and engaging viewpoint. So I would look at this cartoon here because I can't tell you how many times I go to a company's website. You've been there and you pull down the tab that says sustainability, and there's so many words and so much gobbledygook. We'll have the code of conduct attached or something, as if anybody really wants to read the whole code of conduct, right? And it just doesn't work. Or they're having something that's so generic, saying, we care about the planet and join us in protecting the, well-being of everybody. It just doesn't. You just can't do that. It's not going to get you anywhere. Next slide. So what I'm going to show you is just some examples here of how you really develop that authentic, unique statement of the value that you've learned through all your investigation. These are two omega-3 companies. Qualitas Health is one that I'll tell you more about in detail further on. And you can see they have very different perspectives that they're talking about. The first one, Qualitas Health, is making omega-3s out of algae, whereas most companies produce omegas out of fish sources. So they truly are running their business differently, and they believe it's the more sustainable choice, and that's their viewpoint, their perspective. Their competitor, Barleans, and there's so many other competitors as well, their perspective is completely different. They're saying we set out to exceed the expectations of customers and all of the many requirements related to producing this product. It also works, it's just completely different. The next slide, I've got some examples from the building industry. You can see again, these are very, very different perspectives on why they think sustainability is important, why responsibility is important to them. But they're articulated in a way that really can be compelling, and you can get people on board and get support that way. Next slide. So you've got your engagement work, you understand the value to your organization, you have a clear statement of that viewpoint or perspective, and now you're going to want to prioritize strategies that really have a fit. Of course, your strategies have to coordinate with who you see more important, where you have your traction, who some of these initial champions are, and you really just get started, right? Knowing that this will evolve. There will be additional audiences in the future, and you'll see new directions for new strategies going forward. But you have enough information to get started and choose strategies that will really get you some traction. Next slide. So here I'll talk to you about the work I did at Williams-Sonoma. So I came into the company, it was a New York Stock Exchange company that never had lawyers before. There was a lot of legal work to do. And we had a board, we had a CFO, CEO, zero interest in sustainability. I thought it was an important thing for the company to be focused on. I thought there was a great opportunity. But my audience was not going to be that C-suite. So who was my audience? That audience was only focused on earnings, right? So my audience was all of the other people in the company. Went to all of the functional areas of the business. I had my clear viewpoint. We were helping our business by helping the environment. Had a whole slogan, we were all about near home, that was the name of the program. And I found champions throughout the company who wanted to work with me to make some progress, right? So some of the small green steps we did, we had a green team in the distribution center, 14 employees in the distribution center. We're looking at waste reduction opportunities, energy use, paper use, to see where they can make some cuts. We had those were the stickers we put on the paper towel dispensers. Small thing, but it raises awareness. It gets people to focus on how they can make a difference. And then in our corporate cafeteria, we started composting. We had a discount for people who bring their own mugs. It was a fun way to do some stuff there. Then what I was finding, so that was my audience, I also found that the store development and store operations folks were really energized around this. So what I realized was that audience, the internal audience, was too small. Had to reach out to some external folks for support, because there's things that they wanted to do that was just bigger than we could do on our own. So for example, I worked with the Department of Environmental Quality in Portland on packaging optimization. And we looked at putting recycled content in the gift boxes. We got bags for the soft goods, new concepts that really brought sustainability into the stores. At the same time, store development was looking at ways to make their builds more sustainable and looking at a particular pottery barn store. And the challenge they were facing at the time was that LEED was not designed for retailers who were building the same box over and over. You had to do an entire application every time for the exact same stores. A lot of hoops, a lot of time and effort in doing that. So we collaborated with the U.S. Green Building Council, collaborated with big retailers like Aveda, Starbucks, Nordstrom, to work on developing a retail guide for LEED. Now, ultimately, in this case for Williams-Sonoma, the Pottery Barn store, they were too far along in the process and realized, we're going to use LEED more as a reference point and guidance, but we just aren't going to be able to get certification. And that's an okay choice too. It's really about the small green steps. They were greening the specs, made a lot of progress, learned a lot, and it just wasn't going to be a LEED store. That's okay. Next slide. Now, a completely different example. I'm working with the city of Highland Park in Illinois. So I was the vice chair of the Environmental Commission, and when I got there, they already had a sustainability plan in place. They just adopted it. They were starting two main initiatives initially. They were focused on zero waste lunches in the schools and electric vehicle charging stations. So does anybody see what's the connection between those two initiatives they were doing? Any ideas? There really wasn't one, right? What's the unifying strategy? What's the perspective on why they were doing what they were doing? And why should people get on board and excited about this? So we took a step back and tried to think, as this roadmap is showing, who are the audiences? There are a lot of audiences for the city of Highland Park. There's all the residents, there's the businesses, there's other nearby cities, there's state governments, there's community groups, a lot of audiences they could focus on. Decided that one of the key audiences was residents, in particular families with young kids, because they'd be easy to engage and they really want to see Highland Park be a leader. So we looked at this initiative that they were doing in the schools with the zero waste lunches, and how could we frame that in a way that it's really about engaging and educating the kids. Waste reduction, of course, was a goal, but it was less of a focus. The focus was engaging the kids. So then we blew that out and started green teams in all of the schools and started a group of green team representatives, one from every school, to get together and share ideas and best practices. And I've included here Highland Park High School as an example because that team got so excited and they had so many champions there. Some of the things they did, they started a biodiesel lab using their cafeteria grease to create fuel. They started a sanctuary for butterflies and endangered turtles right there on campus. These were great ideas. They had a vision of what they wanted to accomplish. They were learning about this area, and they were following their passions and accomplishing great work. Then I showed Sunset Foods here. What we wanted to do was give some more legs to their program. So partnered with a local supermarket, Sunset Foods, and they were offering, anytime somebody brought in their reusable bag, they would give 5 cents to the Highland Park High School to use on green initiatives. So it raised awareness of what the high school was doing, and also gave them some money to spend on things that weren't all free. Next slide. So the supermarket work is a great segue to the final step in our roadmap. For those of you who don't like Justin Bieber, I imagine some of you really like the Vikings. I had to include this in here. And once you've chosen your strategies that fit, you've done your engagement work, You'll want to talk about it. So how are you going to talk about it? You want to have multiple touch points. Talk to all of your various audiences. Customers, suppliers, employees, your board or investors. Everybody's going to want a consistent message, but you'll talk about it through different vehicles to reach them. And definitely celebrate the champions and the successes. If you're able, if you're at an organization where you can give some sort of bonus or other incentives to employees, great. But if you can't, you can recognize them and acknowledge their work in so many other ways. Through your corporate website or a luncheon or newsletters, any ways to just acknowledge the work that people are doing, because they're, the champions are working very hard. And then the last 3 points really can't be underestimated. You have to, work with credibility and be transparent, avoid any greenwashing, and really be sure you engender trust from those who are listening to you as you're stressing the journey. Next slide. So this is where I come back to Qualitas Health. As I mentioned, they were they are a producer of omega-3s. They're a B2B business, but they thought their best marketing was a B2C approach. The best way to reach businesses is through a push to reach consumers. So what I did was look at how's the best way we can reach consumers. There's 2 things you want to accomplish. You want to reduce the confusion around omegas and where they all come from and what sustainable production means. And you want to create emotional connection so people feel good about supporting the company. So 100% Ocean Safe was the main message that we agreed upon after getting feedback from everybody. Because think about it from the consumer's perspective. They don't have to worry which fishery does this come from. Is it MSC certified? Is it the C certified? Do I even need certification? What does this all mean? And it's just 100% Ocean Safe. It's very clear to them what the sustainable proposition is. Now, in other respects, they wanted to promote the sustainability of their business, but it wasn't so clear or so credible. Particularly, they want to say, well, they're working on non-arable land. I've been to their farms in Texas. I guess it looks kind of non-arable, but who am I to judge, right? And they say they use mineral fresh water. People are not going to trust statements from the brand as much as they'll trust a third-party assessment. There's some data that supports these statements. So they didn't really have a credible way for making those statements. The one thing that I was able to do was, put together a paper for them that described their processes and the production in as much detail as we could that highlighted the sustainability impacts. But there was this gap, and they need to fill that in order to really, have credibility in this messaging and getting the viewpoint out. Next slide. And then back to William Sonoma, and this is really the best example for showing how it's a journey. So as I said, when I got there, they had zero focus on sustainability. The Green Your Home program was completely new. A lot of great green, small green steps to accomplish, but there was a lot that they weren't willing to do. So for example, we couldn't get recycled content in the catalogs. The people in the company were very worried that the quality of the pictures would suffer. They certainly weren't going to pay extra for this recycled content. So that didn't happen when I was there. At the same time, though, Forest Ethics came knocking on the door of the catalog companies, including William Sonoma, asking about the paper purchasing policies. And we were fortunate enough to at least be able to say, we're on this journey. We understand we're not perfect. This is what we are doing. Trot out all of our small green steps and have this conversation. Fast forward, and now the company uses FSC certified paper in their catalogs, has a full-time CSR manager. They have commitments all across the business relating to corporate responsibility or sustainability, and they issue reports on the subject. Now, they are not a Patagonia or Nike or some of these true leaders, but they're leading in their way, which is great. Last slide. So we've covered a lot of ground here. You want to be sure you know the value of sustainability to your organization and all of their various audiences, have a clear viewpoint that reflects that value, and then have supporting strategies and message vehicles. So I'll end with one last story. I was working with a restaurant that was focusing on reducing food waste and other waste streams. And what I had them do was collect all of their food packaging, newspapers, mail for about a month. And realizing that their main audience was customers, we wanted to make sure that the customers knew about the work that they were doing around waste. We had a fashion show. People wore dresses all out of waste materials. These are Cliff bars that I got to wear. And we also had artists on the spot who were making new dresses out of the materials that we've been collecting for that month. So it was a great way to just casually talk to customers about waste and how we're doing all of this work and highlight it for them. So that was a lot of fun. So that's what I have. I'd love to hear any questions or comments anybody has or challenges you're having in your organization. And thank you for listening.